2, 1.
Hi kids, Mr. Pariseau here again. Today, my video for quarantine day 4 is going to be a science experiment as well. I'm going to teach you about the science of baking bread. Most of us go to the store and we get a loaf of Wonder Bread from down the bread aisle, or you might go into the bakery and get a nice loaf of bread that might even be still warm and smell really good, and we take it home and we eat it. We don't really think about the science behind it. But it was probably one of the first chemistry experiments in the world when people figured out that they could take small grains like wheat and throw it together with like a paste of water and stuff and salt and put it on a rock near a fire, and it would make something that tasted pretty good. Then they figured out that if they added something else to the mix, a fungus, that the dough would rise and it would be fluffy bread and not just the flat breads that you get like tortillas and stuff. So today I'm going to show you the science of baking bread. And I mentioned a fungus. I'm going to go to my refrigerator and get the fungus out of my refrigerator. No, I don't have a gross refrigerator. I have dry yeast. Yeast is a single cell organism that is a fungus. And when you add this to things, it creates a chemical reaction. All right, so like I said, the first breads were flat breads. They would make pita bread or tortillas, and we eat those today and we think they're delicious, like those wraps, and we eat tacos and stuff. But then if you add yeast to the bread mix, it will rise it and it will give you a nice thick texture, and you get the bread that we like to eat our sandwiches on, or that we want to put a nice bit of jam or some butter on it, and it tastes really, really good. Looking at my notes, you guys know I do that. So yeast is alive. That's why we keep it in the refrigerator, because we want it to keep it from going bad. And when we put it in the refrigerator, it stays dormant, and we have to wake it up. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to take this and put it in a little bit of warm water. There we go. And I've already got the amount that I need. So how much is the warm water? The warm water shouldn't be above 115 degrees. It should be between 80 and 115 degrees, or else you'll kill the yeast. So 2.5 cups of warm water. I'll need a little bit of a bigger bowl than that. 2.5 cups. Let me go over here and get my measuring cups. I've tried to prepare as much as I can, but it's the same thing when we're in science class. Sometimes we have to improvise. So 2.5 cups of warm water. 1, 2, 1.5. Now I need, it calls for 1 package of dry yeast, but I looked it up online, and 1 package of dry yeast equals 2 teaspoons, 2¼ teaspoons. So here I go, 2¼ teaspoons. And then to that, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. And the reason we're adding the 1/2 teaspoon of sugar is because the sugar is going to activate the yeast. It's going to feed on it. So let's stir that up. If the camera person could come on over here and bring the camera, I'll show you. Stirring that up. And this is going to take about 15 minutes to activate. Let's get the whisk here. So I'm not going to hold the camera on this for 15 minutes. So I'm going to show you that I've stirred it up. And hopefully this is going to start getting a chemical reaction going here. And when I get that, in about 15 minutes, we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at it. All right, signing off for now. All right, kids, we're back. It's about 15 minutes later, And we've got something happening here in the kitchen. Why don't you come on over here with the camera and take a look at what's gone on here. You can see that we've got what looks like foam happening there. Because once that yeast is reactivated, it starts feeding on the sugars and it has created carbon dioxide, the same kind of stuff like you get in like soda and stuff, right? It's a gas. And that carbon dioxide has formed a small layer of bubbles on there. And that's called fermentation. All right, so what we're going to do now is, let me refer to my recipe here. We're going to stir this oil here, okay, a couple tablespoons of oil into this mixture. And we're going to beat that until it's smooth. So I'm doing that. And at this point, it's actually going to go into our mixer. You can mix this by hand as well, but I've got one of these beautiful mixers, so why not use it? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this flour, 3 cups of flour, and I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar and 1 tablespoon of salt to that mixture. I'm going to stir it around in here a bit to get that all kind of mixed around in there. And we're going to add that to the yeast and oil mixture. Right here in our blender. Now I'm going to add this mixing stick here. Lock that. And we're going to start mixing that up. We want to mix it until it's smooth. I'm going to get myself a spatula here. Because there's going to be stuff up here on the sides. And we're going to mix that down in. And this smells. You can smell the alcohol in there. This alcohol will burn off when you cook the bread. But it is alcohol that's been created from the yeast.
And the sugar.
And the sugar. All right, now what we're going to do is add about 1/2 cup of this flour mixture at a time until we get a nice dough. Stopping each time to make sure we incorporate all of it here, and adding some more of the flour mixture. I'm going to put the whole recipe up with this science experiment, so you know, if you want to, this is something you can do at home. And again, you don't need one of these big fancy mixers. You can just mix this by hand in the bowl. You can wash your hands really well with soap and water. And you can get your hands in there mixing it. This is a great activity to do. In fact, you'll see there's a part of this where we're actually going to take it out of the bowl and we're going to have to actually put our hands into it. So if you mix it with your hands before that point, that's fine too. And if you hear squawking, that's my bird in the background. I apologize for it.
She's very naughty.
Why don't you put her on your shoulder? She might actually be quieter.
Hi, Zeke.
She's saying to come here. She doesn't like it when I'm in the kitchen working without her. You come in here and show them what it looks like in the bowl, please. You can see that dough starting to take shape and form. go. That dough's starting, that nice soft dough starting to form. Starting to look like what it's supposed to. Still a little soft. Adding more flour here. I think the rest of it can go in there. All that's good. Oh! Oops. Don't do what Mr. Pariseau just did and make a big mess. But now I have to clean up. But there's really no way not to make a mess when you're making dough. Just the way it is. That looks it's about right, huh? Mm-hmm. All right. So now the next step is to take this and take it out of the bowl. Just slap it right down there onto a floured surface. Add a little more flour. And now what we're going to do is called kneading the dough. Now this step, hold on. I need to get my computer here. This step is actually going to take all the protein strands in the bread and knots it together, making it stick together. So you have to add a little more flour to this. So you take it, and this is a great, this is called kneading the dough. You kind of fold it over and push into it. And you're going to do this for about 10 minutes. So this is a great sensory exercise for those of you who have sensory issues. It can feel really nice to do this. And it's a really important part of the process of making a good loaf of bread. So like I said, you're going to do this for about 10 minutes. It's, you know, you got some aggression to get out. It's really good to do. Now, I'm not going to make you watch me do this for 10 minutes, but I do want you to see how we're folding it over and pushing, and folding it over and pushing. Again, this has to happen for about 10 minutes, and you're going to add like another cup of flour, half a cup of flour or so to this while you're doing this process. All right, kids, I've been kneading this for about 8 to 10 minutes. It's pretty sticky. That's what we want. We want this to all stick together, and it has created a nice ball of dough. All right, all of the proteins in there are all sticking together and knotted together, which is exactly what we want. So we're going to take this piece of dough, and we're going to take it over here, put it in a greased bowl, and I'm going to roll it over to make sure that the top is greased as well. All right, and now I'm going to take this moist towel, throw it over the top, put it in a warm place, which an oven is a great place to put it in. And we're going to let it rise for about 1.5 hours. This is where that fermentation is going to take place, where the yeast and the sugars are going to actually work and create that carbon dioxide and help the dough rise. It's going to push up all those strands of protein and create fermentation and a nice risen dough. So we're going to come back in 1.5 hours and check and see how that process worked. All right? All right. Thank you. And the reason it was quiet that last segment was because Zeke was in here sitting on my wife's shoulder, the camera operator. And this is Zeke. Right, Zeke?
Hey, Zeke.
Hey, Zeke. Hey, Zeke. Dance, dance. Dance, dance. Kiss, kiss. And we've got Buddy, who's helping too. All right, signing off for 1.5 hours.
Buddy, say goodbye.
Hi, kids. So it's been about 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and I'm going to go into the oven and see what's happened with this dough. So we're going to take this damp cloth off, and you can see that the dough has risen. And that's exactly what we wanted to have happen. So that's all the gas bubbles have risen up. So now what we're going to do, we're going to punch this right in the kisser. There we go. You see how it's deflating? That's good. We want to punch it down. Now we're going to take a little bit of flour, put it on the counter here. We're going to roll this out. Let me double check. So by punching it, that removed the gas bubbles, and it's going to give us a finer grained bread. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into 2 pieces. We just use a spatula to do it. It's not a big deal. We're going to kind of form them into a loaf, and we're going to put them into this pan. Take the other loaf and put that into the pan. What? We're going to pat them in there. Now we're going to take these and put them in the oven, cover them over with that damp cloth, and let them rise for another 2 hours. After that, they're going to rise up. We're going to bake them at 375 for about 30 to 35 minutes. So I'm going to pop them in the oven now. Put that damp cloth over the top of it. There we go. Voila. All right, kids, it's been a couple of hours now, and you can see that the dough has risen again. That's because the yeast has been feeding on the sugars, and it's created a carbon dioxide that has risen up the grains of the bread. So this is all set for this to go in the oven at 375. I'm going to pop it in for about a half an hour, and then we're going to see what the results are in about a half an hour. All right, kids. Well, the bread came out of the oven. They were in there for 35 minutes, and this is how they look, like bread. I could have browned the top up a little bit more, but I think that, it sounds hollow when you tap on it, and that means it's cooked, and I don't want to overcook them. So after they cool in here for about 5 minutes, we'll take them and put them on the rack, and they'll cool a little bit more. And there you go. Bread. Very simple to make. And when you maybe do it at home, or the next time you get a loaf of bread from the store, remember the science of baking bread. Have a great one.